It's just such a soothing experience when you have that. I love, I'm very grateful for my partner because it's just very just nice. And it's like, it doesn't make being nice feel like a chore.
We should be nice to each other.
Yeah, it's so simple. But yeah, so we'll talk about that.
It's so difficult too. Welcome to LA.
Thank you for having me. We did it in London last time, right?
We did it in London last time.
London last time.
But you live in Dubai.
I live in Dubai, but London was our middle ground.
Yeah.
We did
negotiated
London,
for London.
And then now we're in LA.
How do you like LA?
I like LA. I really, really like LA. The only problem is I'm always working when I'm here, so I don't get to experience LA the way the average person would. But it's a really cool city. My only problem is once you move to Dubai, you get so used to safety and you get so used to convenience that everywhere else feels a little bit difficult. But it's a great city.
Now, I get the impression that you're a therapist. You help people with their relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like you cater more to the top 1% of people in the, I guess you would call it the sexual marketplace.
Yes. The top earners, the most beautiful women. Absolutely. And
okay.
I make no qualms about it. When people try and come for me in comments and saying, oh, you're always talking about the top 1%, somebody has to talk about them. If it doesn't apply to you, you can easily find a therapist or you can find content creators that do talk about the average person. Unfortunately, because of my environment, I live in Dubai, and because of the thing is, being a therapist, you only access people with disposable income. I'm not on the NHS, I'm not on government funding, I'm private, so therefore I'll only access people who have the luxury of talking to someone and paying for that service.
And another criticism that I see in your videos is you're not a professional.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've tried so hard. No other therapist online will have to release their data to everybody. I've even put my qualifications online. I've even, luckily, because Dubai, in order to work in Dubai, they have to police check your qualifications. I've even put the police check on there to show that it's actually legit. But the problem is when women particularly, and it's some very sensitive men, when they're triggered by your information, because they don't have the intelligence to argue and they don't have the experience to have a counter argument, the only thing they can resort to is suggesting that you're not qualified. But it's their go-to argument. But the evidence is all on my website. And what I would say, even if I wasn't,
I see that with Orion as well. On my
channel. But here's what I would say: even if somebody's not qualified, the internet is a place for opinions. You don't have to take it on board. It's not like no one's prescribing you a drug. So if you don't believe it, you don't have to believe it. But if you don't believe it, you can scroll on. But it's their way of trying to diminish the truth that you're holding up against them. So whenever I'm saying something that triggers them, they feel like the way to diminish the pain of that trigger is to suggest that it's not coming from a qualified place.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school in London, and I went to UCL, which is in London, University of College of London, and I went to Royal Holloway, and then I also did my master's, and then I went to, I did my teacher training, which is a QTS, we call it in London. After that, I became into psychotherapy. I started focusing on psychotherapy, and then that's where I am today.
And then we can put that to sleep, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But the master's, the degree, the master's, diplomas, the QTS is all on there, but they still...
Well, haters love to hate.
They do.
I mean, I think I've come to the conclusion now that some people are just, they're happier being unhappy.
Yeah, they enjoy it. And they look for people that trigger them. If somebody triggers me, I try not to avoid their content, but I will find the same trolls on all of my videos. And they will comment on something I said in 47 minutes in. So I'm like, you spent 47 minutes watching somebody that you genuinely hate. And so they like it or love it. I can't spend time watching somebody I hate. So they're so fascinated by the information, but at the same time, they go in with a negative mindset. So you've got to feel sorry for them in some way. Can you imagine trying to torture yourself watching somebody you hate?
A friend of mine told me this yesterday. He said that you realize the people that hate you the most love you the most. They are actually your biggest fans.
Absolutely.
And if you actually interacted with them, they would flip in a...
Yeah, and they know your content more than anybody else. It's like they can tell you everything about you because they spend so much time studying you. They literally know your friends, they know how old you are, they know where you went to school, they'll know who you've worked with. They are dedicated to being obsessed with you. So you've got to worry about their own mental health. I can't imagine.
It's interesting that they continue to watch if they hate it so much. I remember when I was a kid, there was a television show called The Love Boat. Terrible TV show, just absolutely terrible. I didn't write a letter reminder to the network. I didn't complain to whoever I could complain. I just made sure I never watched it again.
It's that simple. And especially with podcasts, it's such a long process and it's not entertaining enough to sit there and just have it in the background. So the fact that you go out of your way to watch a particular person continuously to do that is, I don't know if it's a slight pseudo obsession or what it is, but it comes with the territory. But what I would say, what I found with myself, which I find so fascinating, I sometimes see people literally verbatim copy my content, and people will respond quite positively to the other person saying the exact same thing. It's when I say, I think I've become associated with kind of controversy. So the moment I say it, it just ignites a lot of anger in the people that have a pre-existing.
I'd like to thank BetterHelp for being a sponsor of today's video. I think a lot of my viewers are going through things, just like we all are, whether you're a viewer or not of this channel. I think everybody goes through something. And whether it's depression or anxiety or you're just going through a tough period of your life, talking with a professional can be really helpful. You know, personally, I go through just the stress of talking to so many people that are going through tough times, tough stories, is hard on me. And talking with a therapist is really helpful. So I just started doing that recently. It's been really great for me. I'm a huge fan of therapy. And with BetterHelp, you can have your therapy session as a phone call or a video session, or even messaging if you prefer. Whatever's most comfortable for you. I did mine as video, which is great. It's just like being in their office, but you're doing it from the comfort of your own home. And my BetterHelp therapist has been wonderful. Right from the get-go, he kind of figured out what my deal is and was really helpful. And what's great about BetterHelp is you get paired with a therapist. You're matched within 48 hours in most cases. If you're just not feeling it with your therapist, you can try another one, or you can try as many times as you like until you find someone that you're comfortable with. And you can do that at no additional charge, which is really nice. So if you'd like to join the over 4 million people that have taken charge of their mental health by talking with an experienced BetterHelp therapist, you can actually get 10% off by going to betterhelp.com/softwhiteunderbelly or click on the link in the video description box below. Thank you for watching, and now back to the video.
A lot of what you say, and Orion Taraban, who I've also interviewed, a lot of what you guys say is triggering.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's almost as if you're a very attractive female and you're giving almost a red pill-ish perspective on relationships.
Well, I feel like I'm relatively neutral. It comes across a bit red pill, but then there's other times where I'll say something and the red pill community be like, oh, she's not one of us and she's a feminist. So it's all it basically is when you look at human behavior all day, every day, you can explain it without emotion. It's a bit like a doctor will tell you've been eating too much sugar and this is what it is. They're not saying it as an insult. They're saying it as an observation. So the reason why myself and Orion probably come across very triggering is we are only relaying what we see. We're not making this up. We're not trying to hurt anybody. This is a continuous pattern we've observed in our real experience working with real clients.
I would say both you and Orion are highly intelligent.
Yeah.
But he has insights into things, and he just tells it how it is. And
I would
it's so hard
say
for people to swallow.
it's probably because, and I really respect Orion, and I respect James's opinion, because what they do in their spare time is they're on the ground. Like myself, we're working with clients all day, every day. If you're watching a content creator and in their spare time they're just selling a course online, or in their spare time they're a reality TV star, or in their spare time they've just got a bunch of businesses, their advice can be, with a pinch of salt. But when you know that person is all day, every day working with people, and as a result has this insight, it might sound extreme, but they're on the ground, and that's why it's triggering you. But they're not trying to trigger you. This is what they observe. So
you spend most of your time with clients
all day, every day. Yeah, that's primarily all I do. A couple of hours a day, every single day, I'll be doing that. Podcast is a very tiny proportion of my work. My work is literally on the ground, speaking to men and women every single day.
What would you say is your core philosophy of maintaining and finding healthy relationships?
What I would say is figuring out your partner's true needs and making sure that can you actually abide by those needs, and if you can't, it's better not to go ahead. And what I mean by that is I've become a bit jaded. I'll be honest, I've become a little bit jaded, but what I realized is how many people just don't communicate their true needs, have a relationship, and then just live a double life on the side or get their needs met somewhere else. Understanding your partner's actual needs and and signing up to their true needs, not what you want them to be. And what I mean by that is if you have a wife who's very clingy and she wants a lot of emotional reassurance and you refuse to give her that and you just don't want to give her that, staying in a relationship like that is like a slow suicide. You're just not meeting her needs, she's not meeting it, and you're just staying together until you both move on. Similarly, if you have a partner, and a male partner, and I notice this a lot, they have a need for physical touch far more than they say. And if you're not willing to meet that, I know a lot of women who will go months and years without touching their husband. If you're not willing to meet that core need, don't be shocked if your partner starts meeting it elsewhere. And I know that sounds terrible, but if you're not going to meet your partner's needs, unfortunately, they will get them met from somebody. So it's better to just be real with each other what these needs are, have that communication, and be sure that you're signing the same contract when you enter the marriage.
Do you ever see people, your clients, who actually make a change and improve the situation in their lives?
If I'm being honest, it's rare. The better thing that they can do is be honest with themselves about what their true needs are and find a compatible partner. Changing can happen, but it usually takes a crisis. And by the time they've had that existential crisis, let's say, for example, somebody has a sex addiction and they only change when their wife's discovered all the pornography or the escorts and everything, it's almost like the damage is so severe that it's quite hard. Even if the person's changing, their partner's still punishing them for the old person they were. So I would say that the better thing to do is, instead of expecting a complete 180 change, pick people compatible in the beginning stages and you'll save yourself a lot of trauma. And then you're just figuring out little tweaks like how to communicate correctly or how to resolve a few arguments. But if your relationship requires this person to become a different human being in order for it to survive, it's not going to survive.
Is love something that we can analyze and figure out so that we can make it work in our lives, or is it just something mysterious and magical that we either get lucky with or we don't?
I think
because sometimes it seems like it's just like
I think
in
we
the cards.
confuse love and attraction. I think attraction is a bit more mystical, and you can't always pinpoint what a person can do. Sometimes I'll have clients and they just say, I'm not attracted to him or I'm not attracted to her, and they can't tell you why. They know aesthetically they're tall, dark, handsome, or they're a curvy young girl or whatever it is, and they just can't tell you why the attraction's not there. I think attraction is a bit more mystical and you can't quite define and work on that, but love is definitely a skill that you can work on. And the main thing to do when you're working on love is remove all ego. If you really want to create love, you have to make sure you remove your ego is not making your decisions for you. So if you're a man choosing a woman purely because she provides you an ego boost, or if you're being mean to your partner simply because it gives you an ego boost knowing that your partner's still going to chase after you, if you have that as a form of love, it's not really love. It's you are using somebody to boost your low self-esteem. But if you really want to make love work, you remove the ego, you figure out what the person's needs are, and you ask yourself the honest question, am I willing to meet this person's needs? Does it make me happy meeting their needs? If it feels so tough and so difficult, you're better off not trying, because you're just going to make that person feel like a burden in your life. But if it makes you feel good meeting your partner's needs, you actually feel great when your partner says, oh, I love that, you give me a massage, it makes me feel so good. And you're like, oh my God, I love doing things that make you happy. Then you can create love and you can build love on that. It's just taking happiness from making each other happy.
How do you advise couples who, like, if they want to improve communication in their relationship, especially when they're going through like a difficult time?
Yeah. The main thing is people who have trouble with communicating, what it really is they have trouble being honest with themselves. They don't know what they're trying to say, and they're just usually either trying to attack or avoid conflict. So they go into extremes. They're either somebody who just avoids complete conflict and will suppress what they're thinking and feeling just to keep the peace. So they might be a man that hasn't had sex with his wife in years and hasn't even said anything about it because he doesn't want to come across as a predator, but then will do something very extreme behind her back. Or it might be a woman who just doesn't want to rock the boat, doesn't want to tell him too much because she knows that he's going to fly off the handle. So they suppress what they want just to keep the peace, and as a result there's no communication. The relationship might last a really long time, but it will lack intimacy. Or they're the other type where they take any opportunity to go for a high level attack to their partner. Every time there's a fight or disagreement, they can never stay on the topic. Instead, they use those as opportunities to abuse their partner about all of the criticisms they've been holding on to for a really long time. So the balance is, when you're getting into a relationship, start with what when you're getting into conflict, start with what you're feeling, like, well, I'm feeling unloved, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling upset. Explain exactly what you're upset about, but then give your partner the solution. I would really appreciate it if you did X, Y, Z, or it would mean a lot to me if you would stop doing X, Y, and Z, rather than you're this, you're that, and they're just screaming and shouting. So giving your partner the solutions. A lot of people feel like if they have to explain to their partner how to love them, then they're not the compatible partner. But with everybody in life, you have to communicate how you like to be loved. They need to learn it from you.
You almost need like an hourly session a week, every week or so, every month at least, to explain what you're honestly feeling, or what you're not getting, or what you're, whether it's maintaining your own identity in the relationship, or talking about the things you want and you're not getting, or what you're worried about. It's like, if you don't communicate these things, if you can't communicate these things, they'll never get addressed.
And also, how do you view giving the instructions? Some people think, if I have to communicate it, they're not the right person. But sometimes you might need to tell your wife, like, I really appreciate it if you wear lingerie once in a while, it makes it different. Or telling your husband that, you can be a little bit more assertive, you can make the decisions, don't rely on me. It's the inability to express yourself, but then expecting the person to know how to mold to your needs is what's going to cause a breakdown in communication.
I can't speak for women, but I can speak for men. I think what men really appreciate is feeling appreciated.
Yeah.
And so many people think men just want sex, but I think feeling appreciated, that'll lead to sex. It'll lead to all kinds of wonderful things.
Which way round do you think it is? Because as I was saying, I've become a bit jaded, and I'm a big advocate of like showing men appreciation, like, even if it's acts of service, cooking, cleaning. I have no objections with that, and I really encourage women to lean into their femininity. But having worked with so many men over the years, I feel like until they get the sex, they can't appreciate the other acts of service. And so it's almost like the baseline. So what I mean by this is... No,
you can.
You can?
With the right woman, you totally would appreciate her responding to your act of kindness, or your help, or whatever you're doing for her.
So say if she cooks and cleans, but she doesn't sleep with you, would you still feel appreciated?
What time period are we talking about?
Let's say every 3 months. Every month, and I don't know what's a lot for men. For men, that
would get frustrating.
What about if she sleeps with you every night but doesn't cook?
If you had to pick a door, everything in life is a balance.
You know what I realize, and this is where I become jaded. Some
guys don't need their woman to cook.
Yeah, because again, like I said, I work with the 1%. As a man becomes more and more successful, he can outsource acts of service. So he can order food, he can have a cleaner, he can have somebody dry clean all his clothes. So the normal acts of service and signs of appreciation a woman can provide, he doesn't require. And even that emotional intimacy, when he's so busy all day, every day, does he really have time to talk about her day or what's been going on? So when they get to the 1% and they start becoming 1% earners, all the other acts of service that are really feminine and beautiful, they become less valuable, and the primary focus is her sexual capabilities.
Are the relationships amongst the you calling it 1%?
Yeah, the 1%.
Wow. Are the relationships amongst that 1% any happier and more fulfilling than the rest of us?
Yeah, it's far worse. far worse. And I would say that on both ends it's far worse, particularly for men, particularly for the male end of things, because they're bringing a lot to to get the lifestyle the 1% create. It's traveling, it's jet lag, it's years of college, it's lots of bills, it's lots of stress, it's lots of negotiation. For a woman to then access that, all it is she has to know what he likes sexually, and she will access that life. It's that simple for her. And she doesn't have to be somebody who is traditional. She doesn't have to be somebody who is respectful. She doesn't have to be somebody who knows how to cook or is a good mother. When the men become the 1%, they get less critical and less focused on all the other traits, and they just focus on their stress relief. And women and sex becomes their stress relief. So that's what they go for. And as a man becomes more successful, in my personal experience, they are far more likely to marry and invest in gold diggers and escorts. They are not looking for wives as they get to the top. They are actually looking for human kind of stress relief. in the form of just whoever pleases them sexually. Is that really jaded?
Yeah, well,
You look
I think
confused.
because you're working with that 1%. And
Yeah.
it's a very distorted
It's very distorted.
segment of society.
It's very distorted, and the other thing is, it's a real because it's the opposite of what you get told men want online, and it's the opposite of what I used to teach. I used to be very much like, being reserved, being loyal, being sexually loyal to your man, cooking and cleaning. This all matters. I realized that it doesn't matter as they get more successful. You'll see Drake having a baby with a porn star. You'll see Chris Brown, the rappers, they all have get like dancers and strippers pregnant, because as they become busier, their social battery decreases so much that the ability to maintain a normal, healthy connection, which involves vetting her, getting to know her, communicating with her, that all goes down. So all they need is somebody who is quite empty and a bit of a bimbo, but as long as she looks great and performs great, they're relatively happy with that.
Yeah, you're living in a stratosphere of,
It really is. Have you not noticed that as men get more successful, their taste of women gets less and less meaningful?
yeah, I guess. I don't know.
No?
I've always been really lucky, so I don't know.
Yeah, but also, I would imagine it also depends on the flashiness of the man. The more flashy he is with the lifestyle, the more he attracts that
Oh yeah,
empty
you
vessel.
attract the wrong kind of people.
Yeah, it's how he makes his money also matters. How he makes his money and how he spends his money matters. But if he just happens to be a successful man, I think he'll still look for a deep and meaningful relationship. But if he's one of those men that is in a constant pursuit of money and flash, he is totally fine with a bimbo that he gets to sleep with. And I don't see anything wrong with it. It definitely works out in her favor because she gets a great life. But this is what I've noticed, which has been a real kind of humbling experience for me, which I didn't realize men were like this.
Yeah, see, for me, it's like when I find a female that I really can get serious about,
Yeah.
I just make it clear that I am the best possible option in her life.
How do you do that?
It's just by the way I treat her, by what I do to make her life easier, better, more pleasurable, whatever.
Yeah,
And that just paves the way for things to work out
And
nicely.
I think that's really important, but selection is everything. If you're choosing a woman who is looking for her best option and wants a loyal, loving relationship, that works perfectly. But if you're choosing a woman who's trying to extract resources,
well,
you can be the
you
best.
can tell the difference, though.
You would think that. I don't think men can tell the difference, because there's so many times where I'll release a video and it's like a light bulb moment for so many men. And I'm like, you didn't think that this 23-year-old is using you for your 55-year-old money? Like, it's like they didn't think that. They genuinely believed this woman half their age, or this woman that, they've flown over from another country, they believe they're special in her eyes. They don't realize the game. And whereas women are so aware of the game, when you speak to a 25-year-old, like let's say sex worker, she will tell you she understands men like the back of her hand. So she knows how to give him some fake self-esteem. She'll know how
Women
to...
are much
smarter.
much smarter about
They're
these
much
games,
smarter.
aren't they?
So smart. She will tell you how to work a man in 5 minutes. But these men who have gone from escort after stripper after stripper, they still believe the lies women tell them, because those lies feed this low self-esteem that they're craving an inflation of. So they will still believe it. And no matter what the evidence shows them, they will still believe it. There's such a naivety towards women that men have that women just don't have, particularly as she becomes more beautiful. Or if she is beautiful, she loses all her naivety about men. Whereas men, no matter how rich they get, they don't lose their naivety about women. They want to believe every word she says.
Yeah, men are simple.
They're simple. Yeah, they'll believe what you tell them, not what you show them.
How has the field of relationship coaching changed since you began?
I would say, like, from my experience, as I've become more jaded, I have become a lot more jaded, because I used to be very much like, tell me about your communication style, tell me about your conflict style. Now sometimes I'll go into a couple and I've got a few skills that I think like is very rare. I can look at a couple within a minute. I can tell if a woman is having an affair. Within a minute, I can tell if somebody's having an affair. I think that's my superpower. The video will turn on, and they haven't said said a word. And I remember having a couple not so long ago. The video turned on, and I looked at them, and I said, she's having an affair. I just could, within a second. And I asked a few questions, but I knew what was going on. I asked a few questions, and I allowed her to start. And I said, do you mind explaining? And she's like, oh, he's a great husband, just we're not in love. And I said, you're having an affair. You can be honest, you're having an affair. And he went, actually, I've just caught her recently, and that's why we booked the call. And I said, I could tell completely that she's having an affair. And I could tell by the fact that, A, she can't find real flaws in you. She's talking about something you did wrong 4 years ago. Or she'll mention that, oh, he, was emotionally abusive because he didn't remember an anniversary 5 years ago. They bring up things from the past and make the man feel guilty today because they're trying to cover up with what's the real problem. And the other thing is they're totally disconnected. They're checked out of the relationship. When a woman's genuinely loyal in the relationship, I turn on the camera and she's almost in tears, like, my marriage is falling apart, help us. But this woman was so disinterested, so like this, okay, looking around, and he's suited and booted and ready for this call. I said, within a second, I could tell she's having an affair. And I said, you are going to waste your life trying to change and believe that it's something to do with today's problems. She's disconnected. And it's like that, I can tell. So I think my skill set, whereas before I would try and figure out if there's an emotional disconnect or if there's something to do with conflict, now I'm just like, I'm so sorry, but I can spot it a mile away now. Yeah. And I can also tell on the other flip side of things, I can tell when a man is addicted to pornography. Those have become my skills. I'm like, okay, and I'm like, okay, this is what's really going on. And like that. So those have become my two skill sets, which is a terrible skill set to have, by the way. Can you imagine having a dinner party and being like, porn addict, cheater, that's kind of what it's become.
You have a sixth sense.
Yeah. Because it's a skewed, like I said, if you're a doctor and all you're getting is one particular illness, you can walk into a room and spot it on people's faces. It happens the same with psychological illnesses.
But we're talking in generalizations.
Of course, yeah.
And there are women who are pure-hearted.
I'm not talking about all people. Women. I'm just talking about the ones the men that. Yeah. This is the thing when people say, "Oh, generalizing." Grow up. You're not paying for a one-to-one session in a podcast. You're not paying for a personalized experience about you. Somebody's telling you about their generalizations because they can't physically discuss every intricacy of every person.
But this is the danger of getting your psychotherapy on a.
If you want your personalized experience, go book a session. But if you expect a podcast to talk about every intricacy about you and your partner and your relationship, it's not going to happen. Except that when people go online, when people give it's their general explanations of what they've experienced, because otherwise it would be pointless for pointing out the one tiny anomaly. Generalizations are there for a reason. That's the whole point of every psychological theory is a generalization.
Are there? You can give me the female perspective, but this applies to men as well. We're so focused on, like, you have to be this for your partner, you have to be that for your partner, and to make it work, to go in a positive direction. But are there situations where you can find somebody who is the right partner, but you're just not able to accept them?
In that moment where you just can't receive the love.
You don't believe you deserve them,
yeah.
Or it's just bad timing,
yeah.
or
Does
whatever.
that happen with men a lot as well?
I think it happens both ways.
Yeah, because it happens very much with women, is that you can see somebody who actually on paper just is treating you right, is kind to you, does want to get married, does want to label it, and same with men. They'll meet a woman that is all of those things, but for some reason they just are still stuck on the woman that won't reply to their text or the guy that won't label the relationship. And there is almost a part of them that has become attracted to inconsistency. They believe inconsistency is an indicator that this partner is valuable, and availability suggests this partner must be low value. So they associate availability with something wrong with them, because what it really signals is something is wrong with your own self-esteem. There's a part of you that doesn't believe you are worthy of commitment, and you are worthy of love, and you're worthy of this level of attention. So instead of appreciating it, you start to question the person who's giving you consistent love. You start to think, what's wrong with you? Why would you want to spend so much time with me? Why would you want to call me? Why would you want to check in if I'm okay? You start questioning their motives, because you can't believe someone would just enjoy and love your company, because either you had an upbringing that made you feel unloved, or you just didn't have access to the opposite gender when you're growing up, and you just formed a core belief that you're not attractive and you're not what people desire. So when people shows you the opposite, you question their judgment rather than appreciate their dedication.
It's like a gambling addiction where you get that payoff once out of every 20, 30 times.
Yeah.
But that challenge keeps you
And I
on the hunt.
urge everybody in that position to really try and shift to a consistent partner. It's a game changer in every area of your life. When you if you are super insecure, if you're super anxious all the time, or when you finally find someone who treats you well and you receive that love and you appreciate it, you won't believe what an instant antidepressant it is.
Yeah.
It's like an anti-anxiety drug.
You talk about antidepressant.
It's
that'll do it.
literally an antidepressant. Having a consistent, available partner that you can trust and loves you and makes you feel loved, it's better than any antidepressant you can receive. Yeah, as long as you also like them back and you're not just using them.
Yeah.
That's the key ingredient, the
You need to
reciprocity.
like them back as well.
You have to like them back. If you don't like them back, they will be seen as a nuisance. But if you like them back, it's seen as a drug.
Do you believe that there always has to be an imbalance in terms of one partner liking the other one more? Or can both people like each other equally?
One thing, I don't know whether there should be, but one thing, biggest mistake I think online is the belief that your husband should like you more than the wife. The man should like the woman more. I always say it's so essential that the woman likes the man more than he likes her. Essential. And the reason I say that is when a woman likes a man more, because divorce is in her hands a bit more, men are relatively placid when it comes to relationships. They are relatively okay with monotony. They're okay if the relationship is not, overexciting, blah, blah, they'll get by with it. Women are not like that. If they don't feel loved, they don't feel consistency, they don't feel excitement, whatever, their emotions take over their judgment. So when a woman loves a man more than he loves her, I'm not saying that's ideal, but the relationship lasts a lot longer because she's willing to fight through the rough times. But when a man likes a woman more than she likes him, he becomes emasculated. He loses his masculinity to please her. He becomes a people pleaser. He'll bend over backwards. And in his desperate attempt to keep her, he loses the attraction even more so. So when it's that way round, gone are the days where girls will appreciate that. Instead, they will actually use that as they use that man as a punching bag.
So the key for a man would be able to attract a female who he's wildly attracted to.
Yeah.
But get her to like you more than you like her.
I would say so.
That's it.
Get her to like you more than she likes you, but also keep her
It's
safe in that.
It's a much better arrangement.
Don't treat her badly. Don't take advantage of the fact that she likes you more. I'm not saying be that guy that just has a woman and treats her badly, but when you have a woman that you like more than she likes you, you are going to become a man she's naturally not attracted to.
You see so much of this crap online. People
It's the
saying you got to
opposite.
treat them like crap and you got to disrespect them. And it's like, I don't get this shit.
No, it's so childish. But really, I would say the best relationships are when both people are equally invested and both people are equally okay if the relationship didn't work out. Both of them have that level of, I really want this to work, but both would be okay if worst case scenario happened. They both have alternatives if need be, but they're choosing this person.
Well, I think the key to all of this is having something in your life that's just as satisfying as the relationship.
Yeah.
Ideally, your career, or it could be your kids, or it could be whatever.
Yeah.
But career is a great one.
Yeah, career is a great one, and I wasn't a big advocate of careers before mine took off, to be honest. How much private therapy, I wasn't really, I think it was more of a case of I wasn't fulfilling my potential. I could do one-to-ones all day, every day, but the message itself was really important, and it was just kind of being caged into my own world. Now that I've seen it grow online, it does something to you where you start to realize that you have something and you're worthy beyond just your relationship. And the moment you do that, you take the pressure of your partner to make you feel whole.
You also become more attractive, and it makes your partner really look forward to seeing you when they get to see you.
Yeah.
Instead of always being around and
it just does
becomes
something.
stale and boring very quickly.
Interesting people are interesting. It's that simple, and boring people are boring. So I think if you can work on something, not everybody's going to be a superstar. Not everybody's going to be a millionaire. We get that. But have something you enjoy outside of your relationship. It takes the pressure off the relationship for being perfect.
One of the things I see in a lot of probably single females in big cities like New York and LA, you see this. I'm sure you see it in Dubai. Are women kind of just acting as if their sense of entitlement is through the roof.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think.
And it's like they almost think that acting super entitled is going to get them the partner they want or something.
Well, the problem I think's happened there is the most attractive women are giving advice to average women about entitlement. Now, in honesty, really beautiful young women can afford to be entitled. Life is easy for them. This is just an unfair fact of life.
But ultimately, that makes them unattractive.
You would think that, but there are still men willing to risk
Yeah, I'm
it
sure
all.
there are guys who like that.
It
yeah.
still pays off. That entitlement is reserved for the 1% of women. It's reserved for the hyper beautiful, you really look after themselves. The problem is these women are the ones that we see online the most. Now they're saying this is what you get out of life, don't settle for anything less, make sure you don't do 50-50, blah, blah. That only applies to the 1% of women. Majority of women are average. Majority of women don't get that kind of treatment from men. Majority of women can't elicit that out of men. So when you are taking advice, I'm so sorry to break this to you, looks matter. They really, really matter. So yes, if you're incredibly beautiful and you're stunning, yes, you can be entitled. Unfortunately, men will reward that. But when you're an average looking woman, an average lifestyle, and you're an average person, you have to have average standards. So I think the entitlement has to be reserved for the 1% of women, and the average woman, the entitlement won't work for you. Teamwork will work for you. And most people are average. Most women, most men are average. So teamwork works better.
So I'm looking for a unicorn, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And stop looking for unicorn behavior if you're not a unicorn. And I know I get a lot of stick on this online because they're like, oh, you talk from like, about attractive women. There's just such a big difference in how men respond to them. It's night and day. So you have to remember when you're taking advice, you have to remember, just like you have to remember your budget price, like money-wise, you have to remember your budget looks-wise. If you're not incredibly beautiful, it's limited how much submission you can get out of men. If you're hyper beautiful, you'd be shocked at how much men will submit to you. And it's a sad fact of life. I don't recommend it, but it's a sad fact of life. And I think I had this realization very recently when I get millions of messages on a daily basis saying, oh, you helped me so much from men. You've helped me so much. I understand my wife so much better. You've saved me from depression, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I'm really grateful for that. But when I look at my subscribers and my followers and how much I help men, I have millions of people that watch it. And yet it pales in comparison to the number of subscribers an OnlyFans woman has. And it pales in comparison to the number of followers women that show their boobs and chest online do. And it's not other women following these women, it's men. So you have people like myself who've dedicated their career, and I would say Orion is one of them, Jordan Peterson, I'm sure he makes a lot, but these people have dedicated their life helping men. And yet we don't compare to the level of subscribers to women who are showing their boobs and breasts. So you realize that men say they appreciate all these great traits, but they reward one thing and one thing only.
What do you think of OnlyFans for a woman?
I think for a woman, people always just assume I'm anti OnlyFans, I'm so completely understand the perspective of the content creator. I can never understand the perspective of the subscriber. From the content creator's point of view, as much as I know psychologically it's damaging, I'm Muslim, so Islamically for me, it's not even a question. I would obviously condone it, but I can understand the psychology behind the person who creates the content. If you're going to make tons of money from just showing a bit of skin, and you're sleeping around anyway, and we live in a liberal environment anyway, and you're going to post this kind of picture on Instagram anyway, making money, I understand it completely. I don't think it's good for their mental health. I don't think it's good for their ego, because
it's probably terrible for their mental health.
It's terrible for their mental health. And the reason I say that is if I become a bit jaded about men from working with them psychologically, imagine the perspective, a woman that sees how disgusting their desires are all day, every day, she must have a warped perception of men. She must think all men are sick, or she might think all men are low quality, or all men are so easy to manipulate, or all men are so dumb. She's going to have such a negative perception of men because her job involves manipulating them all day, every day. That's her job. So I don't think it's good for her self-esteem, or I don't think it's good for her mental health, and also just the pressure it applies on her appearance. But I can still understand if she's making money from it, I can understand how she mentally justifies it. I can see why she says, well, I get to buy a house, and I get to make sure that my kids will be in a nice neighborhood, and I get to, pay for this, that, and the other. I can understand the mental justification. The man that's subscribing to the OnlyFans is the real issue in society. It's not the OnlyFans content creators. There's a maximum of what, I don't know, let's say, if I'm being generous, 500,000 content creators of adult movies and content in general, women. but there's probably 500 million subscribers. We need to focus on the subscribers.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
the real problem.
There,
They're the
there wouldn't
epidemic.
be a single OnlyFans woman if there weren't millions of.
For every one OnlyFans that
Guys
you
eager to
losers in the
subscribe.
comment always try and cuss and insult, there's thousands and millions of you for every one content creator. So the issue in society is not the content creators. The issue is the subscribers. And they're the people we should be shaming. So I'll see sometimes on these shows, where they have these podcasts where they have all these OnlyFans girls come on and they think they're really smug for making fun of these OnlyFans girls. Why don't we get a panel of the subscribers? They're the issue in society. They're the ones that make billions and billions. They're the ones that, I'm a Muslim woman, you're a man, whatever it is. So we've got certain kind of morals that stop it. But if I wasn't, and if you're a woman and someone says, can I, for a picture of your toe, I'll give you £10,000. Not many people are going to say no to that. So we need to focus on the person that's subscribing. They're the real epidemic in society. They're the weirdos. The person that's providing can still mentally justify what they're doing. There is no mental justification for paying towards things that you could even Google for free. You're the problem, I would say.
As a society, were we better off before we had all these possible choices for partners?
I think
because magazines were bad enough, but now with the internet you have a million choices and you can get a woman to do anything you want on camera, basically.
They're trapped by their desires. Yeah, it's like what's happened with pornography is men have kind of volunteered to solitude. They've self-isolated because their desires have become so excessive comparatively to who they are. I'll meet men all the time that are overweight, unattractive, they're not too tall. I know that sounds horrible, but just like how I say with women, you have to accept the fate of when you're not an attractive woman, it's limited how much men will spend on you. Similarly, if you're a very short man, it's limited. Your pool of women changes. They've got all of these traits that are down here, but their expectations are up here simply because they are watching so much pornography and they're watching so many women online. So there's such a gap between what they want and they think they deserve it and what they are capable of attracting. So they end up in perpetual loneliness. They'd rather be lonely, and they'll make a bunch of excuses, and they'll say women these days just want money and that's why I don't date. Or they'll say I'm too busy with my career, that's why I don't date. And the first question I say is, how often do you watch porn? And they say, I watched it yesterday. And I said, that's why you don't date. It's got nothing to do with anything else.
It seems to me like we were much better off 50, 70 years ago when we didn't have it was like there were 5 girls in your hometown. One of them was your age appropriate, and that was who you ended
get
up
on with it. You get on with life, and it's only going to get
There's
worse.
too many choices now.
Yeah, it's only
Even
gonna
if you get married, then you can. Oh, there's this girl or that girl or
There's
somebody
even
on
websites.
Instagram.
Ashley Madison, is that the website where married people could join and find partners? So even marriage doesn't cocoon you from these levels of temptation. So it's only going to get worse. Social media and AI girlfriends, it's only going to get worse. So if you don't have a form of controlling your desires in every area of your life, whether it's food, whether it's pornography, whether it's sex, whether it's money, if you don't practice self-control, as the world gets more and more artificial and more difficult, you are going to become somebody who loses themselves completely. So if you can practice self-control, you will be able to weather all these storms that we're about to face.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think? Do you think men or women are more in denial of the sometimes uncomfortable truths about romance?
They're both equally in denial for different reasons. I think one thing women are in denial about is the importance of sexual attraction, the importance of that, and sexual attraction is really important to them. You might be in love and all of these things, but let's say, for example, you're married for 50, 30 years, a man's drive, and especially if he takes care of himself, it doesn't decrease. So just because you've established love and trust in the beginning 5, 10, 15 years, it doesn't mean that's going to be the petrol and the gas for the rest of the marriage. You have to maintain that. So you do have to maintain a level of attraction. You do have to maintain a level of intimacy. Otherwise, they will just outsource it. And we as women think, but I've been loyal to you for 10 years. And so what if I can't do it anymore? Or so what if I've let myself go? Or so what if I'm no longer? But from a man's perspective, it's a fundamental need that doesn't massively decrease. So I think they're in denial about that. They're also in denial about the amount of appreciation and verbal affirmation men need. The amount of encouragement they actually need. The amount of verbal affirmation men need. Women just assume like, oh, but he knows I love him, or he knows that I think he's handsome. The amount they need in terms of verbal affirmation is underestimated by women. And I think men are completely in denial about the level of women that they can access. I think in their mind that they deserve and should be able to access the most beautiful, young, gorgeous woman on the planet, regardless of who they are. Especially if they made a bit of money, they just believe that they can access that, and they think that that's the end of their problems. Once they've got enough money, they can get any woman that they want. They're in denial about how much work it actually takes to get a good woman to love you, and the main thing it takes is you vetting her properly. You can do all the right things, but if you choose badly, you'll never get love out of a woman. So they think they can convince a woman, and they think they can work hard enough. If they work on themselves, a lot of men will say, if I work on myself, can I access all the top women? And I say, how tall are you? And they'll say 5'6", 5. And I said, unfortunately, it's different for you. And I know that's such a harsh reality, but it's because top women don't compromise. And if they do compromise, they'll punish you for it.
Interesting. So sometimes it seems like we're overanalyzing and trying to figure out each other.
Yeah.
And if we were just focused on our own mental health and our ability to trust and respect others, I think a lot of the things that we were hoping that would work out would probably fall in place.
Yeah. I agree. I think, and I blame myself for this. I really do blame myself for this, because I'll sometimes get on a call and people, because I talked a lot about childhood trauma, and I'll have a lot of people saying, oh, because of my childhood trauma, I can't accept love, or because I was never given love by my parents, blah, blah, blah. And they've self-diagnosed and victimized themselves so much. And I'll ask them, what is this trauma? What is this childhood trauma? And it'll be simple things like my dad forgot my birthday, or I'm not saying that's simple, but in the grand scheme of things, men are busy, they work, or they'll say things like, oh, tiny small things that I wanted to play with airplanes when I was a child, and my dad used to tell me I'm never going to be a pilot. And it's like, men do this, parents do this. There is real trauma, but you're minimizing the impact of real trauma when you make everything feel like it's traumatic. They kind of overanalyze to the point where they just think normal parenting has traumatized them, and it made them void of any accountability. So they'll say, because my mom did this, because my dad did this, and it's such small things. So I think that overanalyzing will create a victim out of yourself, and then when you become a victim, you can never, ever progress in life. You just can't, even if you are a victim. And it's so sad, because some people truly are a victim, but that mindset, unfortunately, doesn't help you. So I think overanalyzing has definitely caused more problems than it's solved sometimes.
I love what you said about men. This probably comes from pornography and all that whole world of stuff, that it's made men think that they can get any woman they want.
Any woman they want. They just think,
when
if
in
they
fact, if you really stood back and saw it realistically, you realize you don't have a chance in hell of any girl.
And then because they think they can get any woman they want, and they're not getting that in the real world, they'll just turn to escorts and buy it. And in their mind, they still believe that that's their form of achievement. They still get the rush, and they still get as if they actually achieved that woman. And so what happens is they have this false sense of ego boost. But as she starts to treat him how he deserves, then his ego deflates immediately. So what happens is, when they believe that they can get any woman they want, they're not accessing her. They go down the route of escorts, and then they get this false confidence. And when they're back into the real world, which they're always thrown back into the real world at some point, because there's only so many times you can get screwed over by an escort before you realize, when they're thrown back into the real world, it's such a humbling experience that they can't go back to, that they end up just going back to pornography or something like that. So it's a very lonely cycle.
Yeah, I think both men and women are they have some serious problems, but men seem to be really lost.
Really lost, and
pornography is kind of the cause.
It's really lost because their entire focus is dehumanizing women down to attractiveness. And whenever you dehumanize women and you just focus on how beautiful she is, and that becomes like the glue of the relationship, or that allows her to get away with everything. When you dehumanize them, she can't respect you. She can't respect a man that is so obsessed with her purely for her appearance, but she can use you. So So it's really important to humanize women again. And the best way to humanize them is to get to know women outside of sex. And what I mean by that is friendships with women, having female cousins, having sisters, realizing women have unattractive traits. They go to the bathroom, they urinate, they defecate, they have these normal human qualities. Men who only rely on pornography or their sexual relationships as access to the female mind will be very limited in understanding them, and as a result become a slave to a woman's attractiveness.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was someone probably similar to you who always understood how to put herself together.
No.
And but then she was also very good-hearted. At the same time. My parents were married for, I think, 70 years.
Oh, wow.
Before my mom passed away.
Yeah.
Women like that just seem such a rarity now.
Yeah, that was kind of the norm before. And it was like a well put together woman. But
my mom was pretty spectacular, visually, like you are. But deep down, who she was probably a more common type of partner. Like really good-hearted.
What is it like from a man's perspective? Because obviously I'm not dating women. I have no idea. But is it rare to find a beautiful woman who actually has a good heart?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Especially here in LA, but I think they exist.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm not looking for a girl. I'm looking for the girl.
Yeah, and so why do you think that's so rare? Why do you think those two qualities can't seem to coexist?
I think all of these choices that we've all been given, and you see like, oh, I could marry a millionaire. I could do this. I could find this girl who's like way beyond my,
But then if those two traits don't coexist, like a kind woman with appearance, are men more likely to compromise on the kindness or the appearance?
Yeah.
They're more likely to, I agree.
If he's not healthy.
If he's not healthy, he'll compromise.
A healthy male will recognize that this girl is going to be a great partner. As I get old, as times get tough, she'll stick with me if my business falls apart or whatever, which happens, in a guy's life.
Yeah.
And she'll be a good partner who rides it out, whereas a lot of the women that they're chasing are going to bail on them.
And I do notice that this is why my sympathy levels have decreased for men. They would rather compromise on the treatment than on the appearance of a woman. They would rather, and they are far more forgiving of unfaithful women than ever before. Like that I've noticed, they just don't talk about it. But the woman can be unfaithful, she can be disrespectful, she can be rude, but she looks the way he likes her to look. He will compromise on all of those things, and it's a shame. Yeah, it's not good for them. It's definitely not good for them. It destroys their masculinity, but they are willing to do that more than ever before. And I know I blame everything on cuckoldry, but one phenomenon that has just taken over since pornography is how many men take arousal out of watching their woman with another man. There's so many women that have come to me and said to me, my husband wants me to sleep with another man. He wants to watch. He wants to do this. And then I
see that a lot.
A lot. And they don't realize how stupid it is that you allow arousal to dominate over your masculinity.
Does that come from watching pornography?
Pornography. They've gotten so used to being a cuckold. They've gotten so used to seeing rather than participating in sex that they volunteer their own wife for those environments. Now, what I try and explain to men so much that the moment you allow your woman to get sexual pleasure from any other source, you limit your chokehold over her. You limit your love. You limit it, because part of a woman's dedication and loyalty comes from believing you're the only person responsible for that experience. When you open it up, whether it's threesomes or cuckoldry, or if you whatever it is, you open up to alternatives, she loses her dependency on you. Why would you volunteer for that experience? Why would you co-sign that? So I always just say, try and keep them sexually loyal to you. Don't exploit them. And if it wasn't for pornography, I don't know where this thought would come into a man's mind, where I want to watch my woman get pleased by another person, and that's going to turn me on. Insanity. So it's just the hijacking of masculinity that pornography has done is why I talk about it so much.
Yeah. No, I'm on the same page as you. I mean, I try to live in the Stone Age, where I'm like 50 years behind the times, but I think it makes for a much healthier, happier life.
Yeah, and masculinity is the main thing that it destroys. I just can't understand why men haven't woken up to the fact that there's something emasculating about watching the woman that you find really attractive being pounded by another man. There's something emasculating about that. You should be participating, not witnessing that experience. But they're happy to take a back seat and watch it all day, every day. It's weird.
That's really weird. Is infidelity something that a couple can overcome?
I get a lot of stick for saying this, but I think that you can forgive men and overcome it in your relationship. You can potentially restore that relationship. And I know everyone's going to cry in the comments. You can't forgive a woman. You cannot go backwards. And the reason I say that is men are better at compartmentalizing sex, and to some extent. That's why so many men go to escorts. There's not many women that pay for sex. There's not many women that watch, well, there's lots of women that watch pornography, but there's not many women that will actually be like on a drunken night, text an escort and say, oh, this guy, I'm going to pay him hundreds of dollars and he's going to be with me. It's not as common. Men can literally do that and feel nothing from it, feel no disgust or feel nothing. They don't. So when they are unfaithful, depending on the need, if it was simply a sexual need because you haven't slept with him for so many years, and you reestablish that intimacy, hopefully you can reestablish the respect in the relationship. I'm not saying it's ideal, I'm not saying it's easy, but potentially you can. If he outsourced love, you can't go back from that. If he fell in love with another woman, he outsourced love, that means there was something lacking in the love he didn't enjoy as much. But if he outsourced sex and you haven't been giving him sex, that you can somewhat restore. When a woman cheats, it's not that she'll magically fall in love with the man that she's cheating with, but she will magically fall out of love with the man that she cheated on. For her to cheat on you, there's a level of respect she just doesn't have for you. It's a respect thing. For her to even get there, she has to fall out of some love and respect for you, which is hard to reverse. And the reason in all the men that I've seen that get cheated on, is never, ever the guy is a bad man, he's unattractive, he's broke. It's never that. It's simply he's a people pleaser. It is that simple. The men that get cheated on, they're never, ever unattractive. They're never broke. They're simply a people pleaser. And what I mean by a people pleaser is they don't have an opinion on her behavior. They'll allow her to do whatever she wants, behave however she wants, just happy wife, happy life. And the more they do that,
the boundaries aren't set.
The boundaries disappear. And as a result, the unfaithfulness is you're fast tracking her towards unfaithfulness, because women look for a protective quality. They might label it toxic, they might say they don't like it, but they still like to feel like you have some radar of her behavior. Her ability to manipulate you, her ability for you to just bend over and allow everything, means that she loses attraction and she outsources it. And if she stays with you after cheating, you have free accommodation. Or the other guy just didn't want anything serious, and that's why she's staying.
Do you feel like taking pride in the fidelity that you've built in a relationship rather than how hot your partner is something that can really make it special and keep it together for a long period of time?
Absolutely. I think taking pride in your ability to be monogamous is something people have forgotten.
Like what you guys have built together.
Yeah. The fact that people take pride in the amount of sexual partners, or the amount of women they've got with, or the amount of men that invest in them. And so rather than my ability to forego alternatives to make this relationship work, is that we're proud over the things that we should be ashamed of. We've flipped shame and pride. So we should genuinely be proud that we've had so many options, but we've chosen to be monogamous with this person. And I've chosen this, but somehow we shame people, especially men, for being monogamous. We almost see it as, oh, you're a bit of a loser for being monogamous, but there's no greater pride, and there's something you should be truly proud of in this day and age if you can be monogamous. I think monogamous men should be really proud of themselves. And I think it's super attractive. It shows that you can think beyond your desires. I think it's really impressive when a man can do that. Does monogamy come easy to you?
Yeah, for me, I am a monogamous man.
Yeah.
I've got all kinds of options, but I don't really...
It doesn't come into your mind. What makes you like that?
What's that?
What made you like that?
Probably seeing my parents like that.
Yeah. And you just prefer quality over quantity?
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
I think that's a really... But do you think that also is helped by the fact that you don't tempt yourself with too much pornography and alternatives?
Yeah. I have really strong discipline.
Yeah.
Like I can decide this is what I'm going to do, and then follow through with it.
Yeah.
For like a long period of time.
And do you take pride in being able to say no to women rather than just giving in to
everyone? It's not about pride. It's just I take pride in being a faithful partner for one partner.
Yeah, and I think I have the same thing. I take pride in being faithful, and I think somebody asked me something about what I'm most proud of with my online stuff, and I said the thing I'm actually most proud of with the online kind of growth or whatever is how monogamous I've remained and how faithful and stuck I have remained in my relationship. It's only taught me that I can be everywhere and anywhere, but my mind is one place and one place only. And I think that's what I'm actually most proud of, is that most people can say they're monogamous, or most people can say that, you know, they love their partner or whatever it is, but not everybody gets the level of exposure we get in this world. I know it's just online, it's not that serious, but it's still a lot. It's like millions of people can.
That's tremendous.
It's tremendous.
The offers that
no other time
like
in history.
you and me and other people will get.
We're on this platform where nowhere else in history would a million people know what your face looks like. So even the fact that millions of people know who you are, whatever it is, it doesn't mean you're a celebrity, but they know you. Your awareness is there, and your ability to still remain faithful is something that I'm the most proud of. So if I come out of this experience and I become nobody, which it can happen very easily, everybody usually has 5 minutes, the thing I'll be most proud of is how little it changed my level of faithfulness and monogamy, and just my general values outside of this remained exactly the same. And I like that about myself. I didn't know that until this experience.
That's really something to be proud of.
I'm very proud of it.
Especially for a woman that looks like you.
Yeah, do you know what I'm most proud of is sometimes I'll go home and my weekends just involve like getting on the computer, watching Dr. Phil, going to bed, we eat and we go to bed, and this, that and the other. And I'm just thinking, now that this is what I'm so proud that my life has become more and more boring, like nothing exciting. I'm proud that that's what I've learned from my experience of being so exposed.
You remind me of my mom in so many different ways.
You said that to me last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, how is that?
I mean, she didn't look like you, but just who she was.
And something about her?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and my dad still, he talks about her all the time.
Aw, that's beautiful. I take that as a huge compliment when somebody who says they remind me of their family member.
Yeah, my mom was great. How many years have you been married?
2. Yeah,
only 2?
Yeah, only 2.
So
Yeah, only 2. I don't really talk about it online, but because there's so much obsession about it, so I'll just say it here and there, but I try not to mention it too much because I don't think it's actually relevant. People always be like, oh yeah, you can't take advice from people who are not married. No, if I based my advice just on my marriage, I'd have no information. That's just one data pool. And they're like, oh, you should only take advice from married people. They don't get to see the perplexities of human nature. You should take advice from people who get to see different marriages at different stages of marriage. You get to see the newlyweds, you get to see people who are 5 years in, you get to see people 30 years in. That's the information I drew upon. If I relied on my husband giving me information, I would have no information, because it's like very limited advice. Because in his world, he thinks no man has ever paid for a prostitute. He thinks he's like, oh, that never happens. Or he'll think no woman gets to, be a gold digger. He's like, that doesn't happen. In his world, that doesn't happen. But it's very common in the real world.
And your husband is Saudi?
In Saudi?
Yeah.
No, Dubai.
But he's
Muslim. Muslim.
He's Muslim.
Yeah, Muslim. Yeah. So it's like the same kind of culture, same kind of understanding, and everything like that.
And that's a big.
Yeah, I guess
that helps. It helps.
It does help.
Relationship last, right?
It helps in some ways. I think it's just more similar values in general. I think it just having similar values in general, it does help. But also, I think what's helped me, because of the type of woman I am, I think the number one trait I needed is somebody who was totally and utterly willing to show me the door if I misbehave. Because I was so aware of my ability to get away with misbehavior.
Well, that's any woman.
Yeah, that's any woman.
Not just a Muslim woman.
That's every woman. I just think there a willingness to know that somebody means it when they say you can't get away with disrespecting me because I don't disrespect you. That's the main thing.
That's probably the number one thing a woman needs, right?
Yeah, as long as he's also not doing the same.
To
being attracted. Similarly, he's showing you respect, but he also expects the utmost respect. But when he's showing you respect and tolerating disrespect, she naturally starts to, she loses herself in that moment. So I think that level of respect is very important, and I had to learn that. It was very humbling, but I had to learn that very much so.
With this partner?
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can get away with a lot as a woman. You can get away with a lot for a long time. So it's always better to be with somebody who reminds you that you don't get a freedom pass just because we like the way you look or the way you act. You get a freedom pass based on how you treat your partner, not just who you are. Yeah.
All right, Sadia, let's stop it there. Fascinating talking with you once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always
I really appreciate you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Sadia.